So we just took Venezuela.
Yes.
We want Panama again. We want Nicaragua. Obviously. We want Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Looking like Mexico is in our sights.
Yep.
As everybody knows, Greenland way up here.
Yep.
And now again, we're talking about Canada, and Canadians are concerned about this idea of Western Hemisphere dominance and what Western Hemisphere dominance means, what it looks like. I'm hearing a lot from sort of the other side, aside from we're supposed to just be happy about this because we took out the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I acknowledge that Maduro is a bad guy, but aside from that, the other point that I'm hearing over and over again is that this is not an occupation. And so it seems like there's some sort of misunderstanding about, are we actually occupying Venezuela right now? I don't think there's any troops on the ground, or maybe not many, in Venezuela right this second.
Not that I'm aware of.
So I'm just not sure if we really are occupying Venezuela. But if we aren't, what I don't see happening is oil companies wanting to invest billions of dollars if there's not some sort of a security force permanently there.
Yeah, ensuring the protection of their assets kind of thing.
Absolutely. I was even envisioning something like, is it possible that we would just pop up a bunch of military bases like on top of the oil fields? No matter what happens in Venezuela, it doesn't matter if the whole place goes to shit again, as long as the oil and the oil infrastructure are on military bases, then we're safe. Because obviously nobody's going to attack like the cartels or
a hard
the Venezuelan
military
government.
base isn't an easy target.
Correct. So those are my just kind of initial observations of where we're at collectively in America about this.
As a discourse, We bombed Venezuela and kidnapped at least their acting leader. We can, debate whether you think that any of these elections are legitimate. You can play semantics all you want, but at least he's the acting head of state. Yesterday, there was a big press conference that Trump gave where there was no manufacturing of consent. He goes, we just want oil. Just Venezuela doesn't know how to do oil correctly, so we're going to do oil the right way. Rubio would come in and try to play the Maduro's a dictator, and then Trump would pat him on the back and say, it's about oil, Rubio. Don't get confused on this. Which is very different to Iraq, which we tried to generate these years of like weapons of mass destruction kind of discourse. But Trump's just saying he's an honest guy, the most transparent administration in history. It's about oil, guys. So I think there's plenty of things to talk about, and we're not going to be able to do all of it here. There'll be several videos to be made. So I wanted to go over a few points of why I think this happened, why this is not happening. Let's go ahead and go over them real quick.
Hit me with
reasons why this intervention invasion of Venezuela took place. Oil. Number one, oil. Pretty clear. Trump was talking about it the entire time. We're going to sell oil. We're going to make oil great again. He said make Venezuela great again also.
He did. And he said he's going to make the Venezuelan people rich.
He did say that, yeah.
With that oil.
Trump was referring to, kind of out of nowhere, again, not prompted, that he would be reimbursing oil companies for rebuilding the oil infrastructure in Venezuela, implying that it won't be like U.S. government kind of things, more like ExxonMobil going down to Venezuela.
Yep. BP will be there.
BP will be terraforming basically Venezuela. Trump was open about the regime change being for the sake of oil.
I feel like he tried to do both oil and like they stole our oil and we're going to get it back and the drugs. I feel like he tried to continue to also make the point about we did this because of the drugs and, the narco terrorism.
Yeah.
But he couldn't help but keep going back to the oil.
Couldn't help about it. He couldn't help himself by saying, listen, big oil wants Venezuela's big oil again, right? Seemingly he was wanting oil companies to kind of run this operation in Venezuela. Was kind of the implication. He didn't really give anybody any clarity other than mentioning he'd be paying oil companies back. I don't know what that means. He said he would be, the people who had things stolen from them would be reimbursed, and those people would be the oil companies. It was stunning to me how open he was about it. Mm-hmm. Rubio stated that they don't recognize the VP, who is now the acting president of Venezuela.
Did he?
He did say this.
We're not recognizing her?
That is Maduro's vice president. This is still Maduro's administration.
All right, interesting. Yeah, I thought she was now sort of the acting president since we don't.
Their
we don't have
constitution
anybody.
continues to act. She is their acting president. The U.S. is not same way that we refuse to recognize Maduro. The Trump administration, as Rubio said, the Trump administration is refusing to acknowledge her as the acting president.
Okay.
So again, back to this, who's even running the show? Trump said oil companies. Rubio's doesn't know what's happening, clearly. His idea of what's happening and Trump's idea seem to be different.
Who's going to administer the government in Venezuela starting on Monday? Tomorrow is a Monday?
No understanding, it seems.
Yeah.
The second reason, I think there's two really big reasons. One is oil. Two is because we can, right? So referring mainly to the Monroe Doctrine and the idea that this is America's sphere of influence, the United States sphere of influence. So therefore, we get to decide what happens. This is a lot like how China views Taiwan. This is in the South China Sea. This is our sphere of influence. We get to make those decisions. Russia with Ukraine and Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe.
Like, hey, this is our area of influence. So therefore, we get to make decisions about these nations and influence them to our favor. Except the U.S. gets to do it with half of the globe because there's no competition on this half of the globe. That's the difference. Russia's got to deal with Europe. China's got to deal with India and Russia and Japan. Like, it's a little harder over there. But here, nobody's competing.
So there's really only three powers that are left, and probably only three powers that will exist from now on, or at least until there's, a cataclysm of some type. So
some kind.
By Trump doing this and kind of openly stating that we want the Western Hemisphere, or we intend on dominating that. He said that prior to being inaugurated a year ago. He was already starting to talk about this. And there are lines that are starting to really be drawn between the three global powers at this point.
Yeah. So I think you're dead on about the monopolization factor of this whole thing. The oil companies in the U.S. are strong enough to just influence the most powerful nation on earth to be like, actually, we're just going to take all of it. So I agree that the monopolization factor is propelling itself in a new way, thanks to modern technology. And I think the other thing is that the kind of rules-based order after World War II is dissolving.
That idea of some sort of international law that exists.
International law, international community, like, hey, we're gonna hash these things out and we're gonna follow the rules and we're gonna work together. Russia doing what they did with Ukraine isn't as severe as what we're doing with Venezuela because nobody was looking at Russia as a moral authority. They were the boogeyman during the Cold War, and that perspective we still paint onto Russia today as the same entity with a new name. But the U.S. was looked at as one of the moral authorities. Now we're doing regime change for the sake of oil openly. And so I think that is going to begin to leading to other nations saying, oh, might makes right. It's no longer diplomacy. It's just might makes right. If I can just take over somebody and they can't stop me, I'm correct. So this might balloon over to China becoming more bold. Russia's already bold enough, but it'll empower them further. And then we'll continue to act in such a brazen manner.
That seems to be one of the precedents that the political experts are especially worried about now, is that have we not just given the green light to China to go ahead and take Taiwan?
Yeah, if we're allowed to do whatever we want on our half of the globe, we have no authority to say they can't do the same.
Sure. China is just smarter and playing the long game much, much better. It seems like they are going to position themselves to be the global leader unless Trump, in the few years that he has left, is truly able to invade, occupy the entire Western Hemisphere. Then the USA is back to number one.
I think China is on the ascension. Their nation has been industrializing and modernizing, so they're on the ascension. We have already peaked. Where the country was the most stable, the most robust. Right. Our military grows in power, but the nation itself does not grow more powerful.
Right.
So I think as a nation, we are at least beginning to decline inflation, buying power, the economy, everything like that.
The shrinking middle class, the declining birth rates.
Everything we've seen and felt all over this nation. So I don't think any large-scale intervention that the U.S. wants to do is going to be really sustainable for all that long economically. I think militaristically, we could easily display power wherever we wanted for however long we wanted. But I don't know if the country back home is going to be able to handle that kind of weight the same way that we used to.
Just wondering, though, if the billionaires can get that much richer, that keeps the stock market revved up and it keeps, the American dollar dominant, although it's definitely not as strong right now. But our GDP would be much larger if it included Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela.
Yeah. Technically speaking, our GDP in the stock market would be up, but as we've talked before,
but
the relation to NVIDIA's cap on the market has no relation to my groceries are getting more expensive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think the two reasons I want to talk about real quick that I don't think that this invasion happened. Two that are a little more popular that Republicans and Democrats speak about. That this is a topic everybody hits on, and I don't think these are true at all. One of them is dictatorship. So you touched on this a little bit on the video yesterday, but the U.S. has a history of globally installing dictatorships and overthrowing somebody who was elected democratically who didn't agree with U.S. foreign policy. The most famous one is Pinochet. That was us in Chile. That was the U.S., kind of our most famous example. So the U.S. historically and certainly now has no issue with dictatorship, with authoritarian measures. There's no issue with that. The only issue is when it isn't to the benefit of American business interests, which is in the benefit of the U.S. government. That's when it's a problem. So if Maduro could have been a worse dictator, but if you let U.S. oil in, Trump doesn't care. Nobody cares. Maduro didn't want to play ball with us. That's it.
Rubio had mentioned that they tried to give Maduro a chance to have an out, a generous deal or something. And I can't help but to think that at least a part of what that deal might have been would be give us your oil.
Yeah, and you can just stay in power and you can keep being a dictator, but we need that oil, buddy.
Yeah.
And so the second one that's kind of clearly related is freedom. Spreading democracy across the world. That's kind of the myth of the U.S., right? We're the beacon of democracy, right? We spread democracy everywhere we go. Again, that is not the interest of the U.S. U.S. does not care a whole lot about that. Certainly recently, that is not the motivating factor. I would say the exact same thing, just business interests. If U.S. companies are making money, they really don't care at all what's happening in the nation as their only kind of motivating factor. Maybe Trump, personality-wise, has different motivations, but the U.S. as an entity, I think is not for those. And you'll hear Republicans kind of say stuff like that, or Democrats say, "Oh, he's a dictator," or it's for freedom. No, it's definitely not.
It's a easy talking point and one that you can't. It's hard to say it's a bad thing. We're spreading freedom. Okay.
Yeah, in the abstract, okay, sure, I like freedom.
It's like, no, I don't want freedom for people. Then, you look like the bad guy because you're saying you don't want freedom for people in Venezuela. So
it's a good trick. It's a good argumentative trick.
Yeah, sure. It's one of those classic, narcissistic Republican messaging that lands on enough people.
Yeah, and it's the kind of messaging that everybody's taught in school, the U.S. is the country of capital F freedom. So it's an easy one to message on to Americans in particular. So those were I wanted to go over, at least in this video, the few reasons kind of what I think of why we did this, which is, I think, pretty obvious to see to anybody who's watching the news. And the reasons why we did not invade Venezuela. So I want to thank everybody, any new viewers, any returning viewers. I appreciate you. There's going to be a lot to cover about Venezuela over the coming weeks as things change every minute, it seems. So please, like and subscribe. Follow us on the socials. You're on Blue Sky, mainly.
Yes, I am.
Twitter, TikTok. We have the Discord that you can check out. We're trying to get that thing growing. And obviously our Patreon that we got back up and running with some new content that we're going to try to be giving to you guys and a few new fun things that we hope everybody will like. We'll see you a little later, probably today or tomorrow, with another video talking about what Rubio has to say. So an updated Rubio comments. So stay tuned for that one.
Sounds good.